Your CV is your calling card to the companies you apply to, and as the saying goes, first impressions matter. A well-crafted CV can make all the difference in getting you past the screening phase in your software engineering job hunt. Hi everyone, welcome back to LeetJourney. Today we are diving into the do's and don'ts of CV writing. I will walk you through examples of good and bad CVs, highlighting common mistakes and how to fix them. Stick around for a live CV creation session that you can follow along and create your own standout resume. Okay, let's start by looking at this CV here. So at first glance, it looks okay, no major issues with the overall look. But if you go a bit more in detail and try to see how we can make this stand out, there are a few issues. So I would start with the formatting first of all. As you can see, there isn't a clear division where the education finishes and where the employment starts or where the project starts. One thing to improve this is to add horizontal lines between each section. So education, and let's have a horizontal line here. Another one between projects and employment. The second critique I have is about the layout. So it looks like this person has some experience, few months in some internships, and one of them is as a crew member in a restaurant, Five Guys. It looks like this person is just applying for a graduate position, so their main thing is the education, which is the most recent experience they have. And then there are few projects, for example this social media app, because education is the most recent big accomplishment they have achieved. It's fine to have the layout look like this, where you have education and then your employment. But if you have, let's say, 2-3 years of experience, usually I would put employment first, because experience in the field is more valuable than your education. In this case, to a recruiter, the first thing they want to see is where is this person working now, what is he up to. So I would put employment first. But in this case, this looks fine. Let's move to the content. So there are a few issues with this CV. First of all, it looks like they've tried to put a lot of things in this page to just fill up space. So for example, let's start with this experience at Five Guys. Basically they were working at Five Guys, which is a restaurant. They wrote down what they were doing. This is not really relevant if you're applying to a software engineering role. We don't want to know like if you were replenishing napkins or straws. It's not really relevant. Instead of having this occupying this much space in your CV, if you want to put it, that's great. Like it shows you were not just wasting time at uni, you were actually doing something. You can leave it in, but just make it one line, put the title, the place, and the dates. That's enough. If you really want, just add one line describing what you were doing, but no more than that. The second thing that could be improved is, we have these bullet points. Let's look at this one. As you can see, it takes one line and 1/3 of the second line. This should be avoided. Either add 2 lines of text or just try to compress it in one. Usually less is more, so you don't want to have this kind of layout. We can see it here, 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 and this is not really good. Same as here. So to summarize, make bullet points more succinct and also ensure that the tense and the tone stays the same between them. For example, this one starts with a verb in the past tense, but then it moves to the present. This does not really read okay and it doesn't look good. Just try to either have everything in the present tense or even better in the past tense, and make sure every bullet point starts with a verb. If you really wanted to be picky, have this subsection in the education that says coursework, and it looks like there was an interesting coursework about this sports league manager in Java, but the description is very vague. Like they say, oh, it makes heavy use of object-oriented programming and algorithms, which of course is gonna make use of OOP because it's Java. It would be a bit more interesting to see if they used any framework. I don't know if they implemented endpoints, how were these endpoints implemented, if they use GraphQL SQL. So those kind of things would be more interesting to see. Another thing that could be improved is instead of having this section, languages and technologies, where you just put a list of technologies that you maybe have just touched briefly. What's usually more interesting is to have these technologies as part of the bullet lists, and you can put them in bold so they're more relevant. It's more interesting to see how you have used these technologies in practice. Overall, this CV needs a lot of improvement. I don't think you would go very far with a CV like this. This is an example of a bad CV, which I think you should avoid at all costs. Few simple things can make a big difference. If you are interested in seeing more videos where maybe we take a bad CV and we transform it into a good CV, just let me know in the comment below and I can make a video on that as well. Let's now look at this other CV. This person has a lot of work experience. So it started in 2007 and it goes up to 2023. So they have almost 16 years of experience. It looks easier to read than the previous CV. As you can see, there are some horizontal lines to separate work experience, skills and education. Something that doesn't look really good is this empty space at the bottom. One way to avoid this is to maybe add some more space in between these experience entries, or perhaps add some projects you worked on the side. You can add 1 or 2 projects, and this way you will avoid this empty space at the end. Another big thing you can notice is that the background is black. Apparently this was the choice of the person to stand out from the rest of the crowd. But if someone was to print this, it would be a big waste of ink, and yeah, it would be quite painful. So I don't know how people would feel about a printed version. It's amazing to look on a screen, but if you were to print it, I would see some issues with this. Okay, let's go towards the layout of the CV. Overall, it looks good. Because this person has a lot of work experience, they put this one first. The latest entry, or let's say the first entry of the work experience, is the latest job they worked at. So that's really good. That's how you want it. You put the latest one first and then you go in descending order chronologically. One thing that could be improved maybe is having education after work experience. Again, it depends. It's been quite some time since they were at uni. I can see why they decided to put education at the end, but generally speaking, work experience, and if you've been to a really good university, sometimes it's good to have education after work experience and then your skills. Again, I'm not really a fan of these skill sections. It's just like a list of technologies that you might have worked on. It's way better to see where you have used these technologies. So we have a good example over here with Swift, Objective-C, Kotlin, Java, for example. Instead of having skills, you can add project section. I'm sure this person had a project or 2 that would be interesting to see. That way they can also eliminate this empty space. The last thing, if you really want to be picky, this introductory line, you can just read and say, oh, this person has 16 years of experience. But in my experience, almost no one really reads this. The first thing they go to is the work experience. In some cases, this is a wasted line that you could use to show another skill or to write about something more interesting and more relevant to the role. Let's move to the content of this CV. As you can see, it looks way better than the previous one, as in there are no half lines. Instead, they are all full. They're quite descriptive as well, but it could be improved. Like, let's say implemented multiple subscription tiers universally, resulting in 20% increase in paid user long-term value. Yeah, it's kind of descriptive, but it still could be improved. You want to put figures there, like, is this 20% increase? How much more money did he bring in? $1 million to £1 million, whatever. This is really if you want to nitpick, but overall the CV is good, and if I were to see this CV, definitely I would call them to have a chat. It can be improved to make it stand out even more. So overall, this is I would say an intermediate good CV. It's a really good starting point. What we are going to do now is to create a CV based on what we have just discussed, and we are going to try and make a generic CV in this case. But what I suggest you do is to try and tailor the CV to each application and position you're going to apply for. This is going to give you higher chances of passing through the recruiter screening. What I have done here is I've created a profile of a person with 5 years of experience, and I've written down some key information. You can do the same. Just write down what you have done so far, what you have achieved. You're welcome to pause and read it. So this is just a profile. You can make your as well, and this is going to be the starting point to write our own CV. This is going to make life so much easier because you have everything in one place and you can just look at it and start writing your CV. So the next step now is to actually write this CV, and I'm going to show you where you can find a template. I'll try to make it as easy as possible. So an easy tool that we should all have access to very easily and for free is Google Docs. Just type on Google and let's go to Google Docs and let's open the template gallery. One of the first section is this resume section, and you have various examples. So we have these 5. I had a look earlier and I think this is the best one for our need. Of course, you can just use a template and then you can modify it based on your needs. You can add stuff, you can modify stuff. So let's go for this one, Modern Writer. This is the CV template that we got. So as you can see, quite simple. It looks modern. We can change these colors later from red to something else, but let's start by doing few changes first to the layout. So I don't really like this one over here, so let's move it and let's put it to the left, to the right. So you can just change the alignment and let's move it here. You should add your address, the city where you live, your phone number, and an email to contact you. First thing, let's start by the name. Skills, as I said earlier, let's leave this here for now, but I don't really like it. Let's start by filling out the experience. The latest one is as a software engineer at this company called Innovate Tech Solutions. By the way, these are made up companies, made out experience. Innovate Tech Solutions. This was in London. And job title, software engineer. And let's put the dates. So from June 2020 to present. And let's start adding some bullet points. So let's try to have everything either in one line or 2 full lines. So let's see, develop and maintain web applications serving 1 million users, achieving a 20% reduction in page load time. So this is a really good description. We have some statistics, some numbers, and it looks really good. So I'm just going to copy and paste. This one is not occupying the whole page. So what you can do is maybe add some more information. Let's say we develop this application using Spring Boot. So we can say develop and maintain web applications based on Spring Boot and Java 11. We have added some technologies here and make them bold. So the person reading knows, oh, they've done this using these technologies. So it shows that you got experience in this domain. Led the team of 4 engineers in migrating on-premises applications to cloud-based solutions, saving the company $50,000 annually. This is good as well. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it here. So let's fix the formatting. This is already 2 liners, which looks good. We can come back to it later and maybe add some technologies. For example, we can say, let the team of 4 engineers in migrating on-premises applications to AWS cloud-based solutions, saving money. Yeah, so as you can see, let's say you used AWS to migrate this internal system. This is a good technology you can add and highlight it in bold. We have design RESTful APIs for seamless integration with third-party platforms. This is a bit generic. We can still copy it, but we can improve it. So let me show you what you could do. So design RESTful APIs for seamless integration with third-party platforms to implement fraud detection and decrease payment rejection by 55%, for example. It looks like a good metric. Let's say you implemented a fraud identification system. You are accepting payments. You designed a REST API that checks with this external system whether the transaction is possibly fraudulent. It gets back a yes or no. This is a good thing you can add to your CV. Let's move on to the other experience this person had. So company name, Codecraft Ltd, again London. Job title, probably this was their first job out of uni, so a graduate software engineer. And they did this from June 2018 up until June 2020. Yeah, another thing, try not to have gaps in between your experiences. Some people might question big gaps. If it's a month or two, it should be fine, even 6 months. But if it's longer, some recruiters might ask, oh, why this person was not working for a year, or why was this happening? So this again depends on personal circumstances, but keep this in mind. So this one looks like a good thing to do as a grad. So let's add this first line. As you can see, again, this is a 2-liner. There are some metrics, but one thing you could say is which technologies did we use? I want to put that I've used Python and Django. Let's say contribute to the development of a customer relationship management CRM tool using Django and Python. Even though if a recruiter knows what Django is, usually it's mainly a Python framework, so Python could be redundant. Let's leave Django for now. But as you can see, this goes to the third line, which is not really good. How can we improve it? We can just remove this and add CRM. It's a known term in the industry, but now this one is too short. So what can we add here is and reduced load times by 5 seconds. Yeah, reducing load times of a page row by 5 seconds actually brings a big improvement to the user experience, so it's a good metric to have. This is a good thing. Again, you've done code reviews, but you can be a bit more specific. Let's say you've helped with code reviews and you have enhanced project outcomes. So this is a bit generic. Let's say improving delivery, improving turnaround times. So let's see if it looks good. Collaborated closely with senior developers on code reviews and architecture discussions, improving turnaround times for projects. Yeah, this is okay. Again, the more specific you are, the better it is. And another thing is you want to keep your CV one page, especially if you have less than 10-15 years of experience. I don't see a point in having a longer CV. It doesn't add anything. So we put the main things. We have put experience. Let's go to the education. So this person went to University of London. Let's put the name here. Education, again, I guess London. And degree, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. So this is occupying a new line. This is not good. So what we can do is we can just put BSc in Computer Science. So they finished in 2017. Usually they start in September. So I guess they started in 2014 and they finished June, July. It's usually the end time, so let's say 2017. We don't need this location really. And here you can add a brief description if you want. If you worked on something interesting, if your last year project was something great, amazing that you want to showcase, you can put it here. Let's say as part of your third year project you worked on an expense tracking application. We can put it here. Let's take this line and let's add it here. And let's make it a bullet point. This shows that you were working on technical projects also when you were at university. We have used Spring Boot, Hibernate, MySQL for the backend service. We designed a responsive front-end with React. Let's make this look a bit nicer, and let's make this bold. I noticed that Spring Boot should be separated, so let's separate that. Yes, so we have added some more information here. We can make this look nicer. It looks like we've done two different things, even though this was part of this expense tracker application. So what we could try and do is write, let's say, third year project. The person reading this will know this was a third year project and they worked on this expense tracking application. What we can do now is we can either add a project section or we can add this other project that this person has worked on. But as you can see, it's again a Spring Boot and Java application. It's interesting that they use AWS. We have Docker and Kubernetes. You can either add those in the education or have a project section, which would be even better. You could even take this out and move it to a project section on its own, because I think we have something interesting here, which is this internship as a software engineer. They worked on something interesting, again, reporting accuracy improved by 15% on this data visualization dashboard. And it also shows that this person was capable enough to get an internship whilst in university. So I would definitely add that here in the experience. Let's make a new entry. Let's add this. So FutureSoft. And this was London again, and we can put summer engineering intern. And this was during the summer of 2016, so you could say June 2016 up until September 2016. Let's add this entry. This looks interesting on a CV in my opinion. Again, we can improve this even more, but I don't want to spend too much time, otherwise this video would be 2 hours long. Making a good CV takes time. You need to keep constantly tweaking it. So we have experience, we got education, we have this award section, which it's there, it's not adding anything. Some people, what they do is just add like a skills section, and where they just dump a bunch of skills, like where they would just have these things. In my opinion, it doesn't add much value. If an interviewer wanted to be really petty, they could ask you anything about, let's say, Hibernate, and maybe you don't know the details of Hibernate. Just assume that you could be asked about anything that you put on your CV. You want to put things you have actually worked on and that you can demonstrate using examples. What I would do in this case is I would try and add this technical project, as it has used some interesting technologies like Docker and Kubernetes, which are actually quite they're liked in the industry. So let's try to add this. So projects, or let's put the name of this project, e-commerce microservices platform. You could put, like, I don't know, the name of the technology maybe. We don't really need the date here. We don't need this. As you can see, we have already gained some more space. Okay, so let's try to add these lines and let's see what happens, if we can maybe remove some or just change them. So this is a single line, and then we've got user authentication, authorization using screen security. I think that we can just leave it out. Of course, we're gonna have authentication when building an e-commerce platform. I think this is more interesting, the Kubernetes and the AWS Docker stuff. So let's make this bold. Okay, as you can see, this goes to the second page. We need to have everything in one page. So let's try and see what we can do. Yeah, something like we should avoid is probably these 2 lines. Like, we shouldn't do this. Let's see if we can change it, or we can combine it. Build a full stack expense tracker with a React frontend and a backend based on Spring Boot. I'm asking a React frontend used Spring Boot Hibernate MySQL for backend. We have gained some space, and voila, this has come up. Again, this does not look good. We have a word on a single line. We should avoid this. So how can we improve it? Let's see. Deployed service. Yeah, we can say deployed service on AWS using Docker and Kubernetes with 99.9% uptime. I think that's good enough. Let's go through this CV. So let's make it bigger. We have a good layout, it's quite clear. We have experience, education, and some projects. Actually, a project in this case. One thing you can do is change this color from red to something more professional, maybe like a dark blue. Yeah, I think that looks a bit better. This looks a bit more professional. You have your name in big, experiences, your education, and a project. Again, by no means this is the perfect 100% secured CV, but it gives you a good structure, actually a very good structure on how to structure your CV and improve your chances of passing at least the first stage. Once you pass the first stage, then it's all based on your interviews, how they go, how you perform. So the CV is your entry card to the company. Try to make it as interesting as possible. A big topic that comes up when building CVs is ATS, applicant tracking systems, where people just add random skills or have a section with skills just because they think they can trick the ATS system. But that's a big misconception. ATS systems don't reject resumes, recruiters do. There are hundreds of ATS platforms out there, and their primary purpose is to help track applicants and manage the recruitment process, not to disqualify you automatically. I've included a link in the description to an article that explains ATS systems in detail and debunks this persistent myth. Now that you have your CV, what you want to do is get some feedback just to make sure that everything makes sense, and an extra pair of eyes, it's always welcome. So take your CV, send it to your friends, to your colleagues, or whoever you want, and get some feedback. I also offer a CV check service. You can simply go on my Patreon and book it there. I will happily go through your CV, give you tips and corrections to make. I hope you enjoyed this video and good luck with your job hunt. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it somewhat useful to reach your goal. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it allows me to keep creating more and better content for you, all completely free of charge. See you on the next video.